Before he was 35 years old, Charles "Lucky" Luciano had murdered his way to the top of the New York Mafia, abolished its highest office, and created the 5 families that still operate in this city today. He didn't just become the most powerful gangster in America. He reinvented organized crime itself. The Genovese family, the Gambino family, the Bonanno family, the Colombo family, the Lucchese family. Every American mafia organization operating in New York today traces back to a structural blueprint one Sicilian immigrant drew up in 1931. The same year, he had 2 old bosses killed, 3 months apart, to clear the table. This is the story of how he did it. And to understand how, we have to start where he started. Lower East Side, Manhattan, 1906. A 9-year-old boy named Salvatore Lucania steps off a steamship from Sicily with his family. They settle in a tenement on East 10th Street. His father works as a laborer. His mother takes in laundry. By age 14, the boy already has an arrest record. By 18, he is doing 6 months in a reformatory for selling heroin. Born Salvatore Lucania in a Sicilian sulfur mining town called Lercara Fridi in 1896. By the time he was 35 years old, he would do everything the opening of this video just told you he did. He would also get taken down by a young prosecutor named Thomas Dewey, deported to Italy after the Second World War, and die alone at an airport in Naples at 65. If you ain't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit subscribe. Drop a name in the comments if there's someone you want me to cover next. All right, let's get into it. By the 1920s, Luciano was working for Joe Masseria, the most powerful Italian mob boss in New York. Masseria called himself Joe the Boss. He was old school. He believed only Sicilians belonged at the table. He didn't trust the Jewish gangsters his Lieutenant Luciano was already partnering with. That partnership was the key to everything that came next. Luciano's closest associate was a Jewish gangster from the Lower East Side named Meyer Lansky. They had met as teenagers. Lansky handled numbers, finance, planning. Luciano handled muscle and territory. The two of them would run the most profitable criminal alliance in American history, across 40 years. In 1930, Masseria went to war. His rival was Salvatore Maranzano, a younger Sicilian boss from Brooklyn. The conflict between them was called the Castellammarese War. It killed dozens of mobsters across New York between February 1930 and April 1931. 2 old Sicilian bosses. 1 war. 2 empires up for grabs. Luciano picked a side. He picked his own. On April 15, 1931, Joe Masseria sat down to lunch at a restaurant on Coney Island called Nuova Villa Tamaro. Luciano was at the table. After the meal, Luciano excused himself to the bathroom. 4 gunmen walked in. One of them was Bugsy Siegel. Masseria was dead by the time Luciano came back. That was the first half of the plan. The second half came on September 10th. Maranzano was now boss of bosses. He had set himself up in an office in the Helmsley building on Park Avenue. Luciano's hitmen, disguised as police officers, walked into the office, killed Maranzano's guards, and stabbed and shot Maranzano to death at his own desk. In one summer, Luciano had taken out both bosses of bosses. He was 34 years old, and he made a decision that changed organized crime in America permanently. He abolished the title. Luciano called a meeting in Chicago later that 1931. He told the assembled bosses there would be no more capo di tutti capi, boss of all bosses. The position had killed Masseria, killed Maranzano, and would kill whoever held it next. Instead, Luciano proposed a council, a board of directors of organized crime. They called it the Commission. The Commission was Luciano's idea. 5 New York families, each with equal vote, plus seats for the Chicago outfit and the Buffalo family. They would arbitrate disputes. They would approve hits across families. They would coordinate the rackets nationally. The 5 families were Luciano's own, plus Profaci, Mangano, Bonanno, and Galliano. Those 5 names would later evolve into the names every American hears today: Genovese, Colombo, Gambino, Bonanno, Lucchese. They are the same families that exist in New York right now. Luciano didn't only build the Italian side. With Lansky, he created a national crime syndicate that included Jewish gangsters like Bugsy Siegel, Albert Anastasia, and the killers known as Murder Incorporated. Italians and Jews working as partners. Nothing like it had existed before. By the mid-1930s, Luciano was rich, untouchable, and famous. He lived in a permanent suite at the Waldorf-Astoria. He sat for newspaper interviews. He was, in the words of historians, the first mafia boss to become a celebrity. That visibility was his mistake. In 1935, a young New York special prosecutor named Thomas Dewey began an investigation into organized crime in the city. Dewey's team noticed a pattern. Brothels across Manhattan were being represented by the same handful of bondsmen and lawyers. All of them worked for Luciano. In February 1936, Dewey raided over 40 brothels in one night. More than 100 people were arrested. Most were women. Most could not afford the $10,000 bail. Some of them, under heavy pressure, agreed to testify against Luciano. The trial began May 13, 1936. Dewey called Luciano the head of the largest prostitution ring in the country. On June 7, 1936, Luciano was convicted on 62 counts of compulsory prostitution. He was sentenced to 30 to 50 years at Clinton Prison in Dannemora, New York. He was 39 years old, and from a prison cell in upstate New York, he kept running the commission. Then came 1942. In February of that year, the French luxury liner Normandy burned and capsized in New York Harbor. It was being converted into an Allied troop ship. U.S. naval intelligence suspected sabotage and feared the docks were vulnerable. They needed help controlling the waterfront. The unions on the docks were Italian, and the Italian docks were Luciano's territory. Naval intelligence approached Meyer Lansky. Lansky went to see Luciano in prison. Whatever was said, the sabotage stopped. For the rest of the war, Luciano cooperated with U.S. intelligence from his cell. The operation was called Operation Underworld. In January 1946, Thomas Dewey, now governor of New York, commuted Luciano's sentence on the condition that he leave the country. In February, Luciano was deported to Italy. In December that same year, he convened the commission in Havana, Cuba. Frank Sinatra attended. The U.S. Bureau of Narcotics found out. Washington pressured Cuba. Luciano was sent back to Italy permanently. Now lock in, because there is one detail in this case that almost nobody talks about, and it matters. The case that took Luciano down was built by a 36-year-old African-American attorney named Eunice Carter. She was the one who noticed the bondsman pattern. She was the one who connected the brothels to the mafia. Dewey gave the speeches. The case was hers. When Luciano was convicted, Carter's name barely appeared in the newspaper coverage. She was a black woman in a Manhattan prosecutor's office in 1936. She didn't get the credit. The man whose empire she cracked is the one history remembers. On January 26, 1962, Luciano died of a heart attack at Naples Airport. He was 65 years old. He had gone there to meet an American film producer who wanted to make a movie about his life. He died alone in an airport, far from the city he ran for 30 years. But the 5 families he built are still operating in New York, still running rackets, still answering to the commission he invented. That's not a downfall. That's a man who lost his country and kept his empire.